The apartment on Maple Street was small, old, and tired, much like the woman who lay on the narrow bed beside the window. The paint on the walls had faded into a pale yellow, and the heater made a rattling sound every few minutes, as if it, too, was struggling to keep going. Evelyn Carter stared at the ceiling, her breathing shallow and uneven. The illness had taken her strength slowly, cruelly. At first, it was just fatigue. Then came the pain, the hospital visits, and finally the diagnosis that changed everything. Her son, Daniel Carter, sat on a wooden chair near her bed, holding a notebook that had become his silent companion. He was 22 years old, too young to carry the weight of a life falling apart, yet old enough to understand that no one else would carry it for him. "Danny," Evelyn whispered, her voice thin like paper. Daniel leaned forward immediately. "I'm here, Mom." She smiled weakly. "You don't have to sit all night. You should rest." Daniel shook his head. "I'll rest later." In truth, rest had become a luxury Daniel could not afford. Ever since his father had passed away 5 years earlier, life had been a series of small battles: rent, groceries, hospital bills, and endless worry. They lived in a modest town in Ohio, a place where dreams often felt larger than the opportunities. Daniel had once dreamed of college, of becoming an engineer, of building something meaningful. But dreams were expensive, and illness was even more so. As the heater rattled again, Daniel looked around the room and felt the familiar knot tighten in his chest. How did we end up here? He wondered. He didn't know it yet, but the answer, and the way out, would come not through a miracle, but through small steps. The weight of responsibility. Daniel's days followed a strict routine. He woke up before sunrise, prepared breakfast for his mother, made sure she took her medicine, and then rushed to his part-time job at a grocery store. The job wasn't glamorous. He stocked shelves, cleaned spills, and smiled at customers who barely noticed him. But every dollar mattered. One afternoon, as Daniel stacked cereal boxes, his manager, Mr. Thompson, approached him. "Daniel," he said, adjusting his glasses, "you've been working hard." "I see that. Thank you, sir," Daniel replied, surprised. "We might have extra hours next month. Would you be interested?" Daniel's heart lifted slightly. Yes, very much. It wasn't much, just a few extra hours, but to Daniel, it felt like hope knocking softly on the door. That night, as he counted the money in his wallet, Daniel realized something important: even the smallest increase made a difference. When he told his mother, Evelyn smiled. "You see," she said gently, "life changes little by little, Danny. Not all at once." A lesson from the past. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled across the sky, Evelyn asked Daniel to bring her an old box from the closet. Inside were photographs, letters, and a worn journal. "That belonged to your father," she said. "He used to write in it when life felt heavy." Daniel opened the journal carefully. The pages were yellowed, but the words were clear. "I learned today that big dreams are built on small actions. One brick at a time." Daniel read the line again and again. His father had not been a wealthy man. He had worked in a factory, saved slowly, and believed deeply in patience. "Your father always said that giving up is loud," Evelyn whispered, "but persistence is quiet." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, journal in hand, and thought about his life. "What small step can I take tomorrow?" he asked himself. The first small step. The next morning, Daniel woke up 30 minutes earlier than usual. Instead of scrolling through his phone or rushing blindly into the day, he used that time to learn. He borrowed an old laptop from a neighbor and searched for free online courses. Engineering felt too far away, but basic computer skills didn't. Typing, Excel, Simple coding. 30 minutes a day, that was all he promised himself. Some days, he was too tired. Some days, his head felt heavy with worry. But he remembered his father's words and kept going. 30 minutes became a habit. A small step. Evelyn's strength. Evelyn watched her son quietly. She noticed the early mornings, the focused look in his eyes, the notebook filled with scribbled notes. One afternoon, she said, "I'm proud of you." Daniel looked up. For what? For not stopping. She coughed, wincing in pain, but her eyes were warm. "You're teaching me something," she continued. "Even when the body is weak, the spirit can grow." Daniel felt tears burn his eyes. "I'm doing this for us." Not every day brought progress. One evening, Daniel received a hospital bill that made his hands shake. The amount was more than he earned in 2 months. He sat on the floor, his back against the wall, feeling defeated. "What's the point?" he muttered. "1 step forward, 10 steps back." Evelyn heard him and called softly, "Danny." He wiped his face and went to her room. "Life isn't testing your strength," she said slowly. "It's testing your consistency." Daniel took a deep breath. That night, despite his exhaustion, he opened the laptop again. Another small step. 6 months passed. Daniel's skills improved. He earned a free online certificate in data entry and basic IT support. On a whim, he applied for a remote part-time job. Days passed, then weeks. One morning, an email arrived. "We would like to offer you a trial position." Daniel stared at the screen, hardly breathing. It wasn't a high-paying job. It wasn't a miracle, but it was something. When he told his mother, she closed her eyes and whispered. Life became busier. Daniel worked mornings at the grocery store, afternoons on the computer, and evenings with his mother. It was exhausting, but different now. The exhaustion had purpose. Bills became slightly easier to manage. The fear didn't disappear, but it softened. Daniel realized that his life hadn't changed because of one big event, but because of hundreds of small decisions. One cold winter night, Evelyn's condition worsened. Daniel rushed her to the hospital, holding her hand the entire way. She looked at him, her eyes calm. "Danny," she whispered, "promise me something." "Anything," he said, choking back tears. "Keep taking small steps, even when I'm not here." Tears fell freely now. "Don't talk like that," she smiled softly. "Life doesn't stop, my son. It continues through you." Evelyn passed away peacefully before dawn. The days after the funeral were heavy and quiet. The apartment felt empty, too empty. Daniel wanted to stop everything, to quit his job, to shut down, to give in to grief. But then he remembered. Small steps. He got out of bed. He opened the laptop. He breathed. One step at a time. A year later, Daniel moved out of the apartment on Maple Street. He had secured a full-time remote position and was saving for college. On his last night there, he stood by the window where his mother used to lie and whispered, "We did it, Mom." Not in a grand way. Not overnight, but slowly, steadily. Years later, Daniel stood in front of a small audience at a community center in Ohio. "I didn't change my life with one big decision," he said. "I changed it with small steps, taken every day, even when I was tired, scared, or broken." He paused, thinking of his mother. "If you're struggling," he continued, "don't wait for motivation. Just take one small step, then another. That's how lives transform." Epilogue. The power of one small step. Life rarely changes in a single moment. It changes in quiet mornings, in tired evenings, in small promises kept. Daniel Carter learned that success is not loud, it is patient. And, sometimes, the smallest step is the bravest one of all. Moral of the story. Small steps, taken consistently, can transform even the hardest life.